So hello everyone, thank you for taking some time out of your day to watch this session on the online faculty system. My name's Newlove, I'm the DAC Project Assistant, and I'm going to be leading the first half of this training session before handing over to my colleague Rosaleen, who'll introduce herself to you when she takes over about halfway through. So we're going to be covering a few different things in this session. It should take around about an hour or so, maybe slightly under. So initially we're going to look at the church heritage record, and I'll explain more about that in a minute. Then we're going to look at the background to the online faculty system, or the OFS. I'll use those two terms interchangeably throughout. I'll cover quickly how you register for the system, and then we'll go through in turn the different uses for the OFS. So for List A and List B matters, temporary minor reorderings and faculty applications. And then finally, I'll just briefly tell you where you can find help and support during applications or more broadly with the system. And then that will be us done. So looking at the church heritage record first, this is a digital database of all of the consecrated church buildings across the UK. So there's over 300 of those on the system within the Diocese of Carlisle. It's designed to have an educational and engagement role. So members of the public can look on this, can search for church buildings and find out information they may want to know. So whether that's architectural, archaeological, to do with the natural environment of churchyards. So the data comes from the Form 1As or the standard information forms, but there's also data from other sources. So Caring for God's Acre do a lot of work to do with churchyards. And we've also got some data from Cumbria Wildlife Trust, who did a survey of churchyard ecology 10 years ago or so, and they've given us access to that data to share using the church heritage record. So there's a huge wealth of information there. The reason I'm mentioning the church heritage record today is because it ties into the online faculty system, with the information in it essentially taking the place of the standard information form. When you do faculty applications, that information is transferred across, and it automatically completes it for you. So it's one less form for you to have to fill out yourselves. But what that means is it's really important that the information in it is correct, because obviously any errors may be transferred across. I've done my best to check all that, but if you ever look on here and you notice any errors with the information, please just let myself or Rosaleen know and we can correct those, and then moving forward you'll have the right information for faculty applications. So now looking at the OFS itself, I'm just going to talk to you briefly about some of the background to the project. So in 2012, the Faculty Simplification project was launched, and this was a consultation with parishes right across the country to see how the faculty process could be made simpler, easier, smoother for individuals to use. And an overwhelming request was for an online system to be brought in. So the OFS was launched in 2015 as a consequence of this. It was initially funded by the Archbishop's Council and a grant from Historic England. And to just let you know, it's not a commercial enterprise. Every diocese that uses it does pay a small fee, but that fee goes into the upkeep, maintenance and development of the site itself. So adding new features or making it more user-friendly based on feedback. So it's not a money-making scheme. It's continually evolving to make it as simple and easy for parishes as possible. So it's a planning portal, much like that in the secular system, and it's accessible to all stakeholders. So parishes and applicants can start faculty applications using it. Chancellors can make their determination and view all the information within the system. There's also an area for public to view public notices. So it brings everything together into one place. People can only see what they need to see. So for example, in the public notices, they're not going to have access to every single form you've maybe filled out. They only need to see what is crucial for them to make their opinions known about the project if they decide to do so. It covers List A, List B, temporary minor reorderings and full faculty applications. So it's all there together, and the Care of Churches Measure 2015 and the new rules from April 2020 are kind of built into the system. So it always reflects the most up-to-date legislation regarding faculty process, and you'll see in a moment how that works within the List A and List B matters. There are a few items that it doesn't actually process at the minute. As I said, money goes into the development of the site, so these may be things that are added in time, but they're not currently features that are accessible. And if you have an application of this sort, you should follow the procedure as has been done prior to the 1st of December, when the diocese is starting to use the online faculty system. Should just continue to follow the old process for these. We've also going to continue accepting preliminary advice forms, and information about them can be found on the diocese website, because again, that's not something that's integrated into this system at the minute. So I'm just going to quickly talk you through how you register for an account. So if you want to complete List A, B, temporary minor reorderings, or faculty applications on behalf of the church, or if you're a DAC member or a consultee of some sort, you will need an account with the online faculty system. To register, you go to the OFS website, and you'll see a registration page similar to the screenshot seen on here. And you just fill in your details as you would do if you were registering for any sort of web page account. So you fill all of your details in. At the bottom of this screenshot, you'll see an email preferences option. We suggest you select the every time something happens option, because that means you'll get an email notification when something happens to an application that you need to be aware of. Otherwise, you may end up with daily emails regarding applications, and if something's in a consultation period for 42 days, you don't need 42 days worth of emails reminding you of that. Once you've filled your information in, you'll need to select what sort of account you're applying for. So if you are a member of a parish, maybe a church warden, you will be need an applicant account. If you sit on the DAC, you'll need a consultee account. So you can select the option, select the diocese you represent, and if you're applying for an applicant account, you can then select which churches you represent. So for some of you, that may only be 1. For some of you, that may be 8, if you're a member of the clergy across a large parish. So you can search for those in this kind of church search box that you see on the left-hand side of the screen. Start typing the name in, and when it appears in that search bar, just click it, and that's when it will be highlighted in purple beneath. So add whichever churches are relevant to your account. And once you've confirmed your account, myself or Rosaleen will need to also confirm it. That's just a kind of security fail-safe to make sure people applying for accounts are actually linked to churches within the diocese. So kind of give us maybe a day or two, particularly if you're applying at weekends when we're not in the office, and then we'll confirm those accounts, and then you're good to go. If you don't link a church up to your account, you won't be able to start applications, or maybe you move to a new area and need to add a new church. You just need to let us know in that case, and we can add churches onto your account at a later date. If you're someone who has 2 roles, so maybe you're a church warden and you also sit on the DAC, you've got a slightly different process because you'll need 2 accounts, so 1 for either role. If that's the case, please get in touch with us and we can explain that to you in more detail on an individual case-by-case basis. So we're now going to look at the application processes. I'll cover the List A and List B matters before handing over to Rosaleen, who will do temporary minor reorderings and the full faculty applications. On the slides, you'll see screenshots of different stages of the applications. We won't be showing you every question. The majority are either exactly the same or very similar to the current application form. It's now in this online format. And if we were to show you every single question, we'd be here all day. But we're showing you enough to give you an overview of how the system will work. And I'll explain at the end where you can find further information. So when you log on, you'll see this home page. This churches tab that I'm just highlighting is where you can find that church heritage record. The help tab has lots of important documents. As I said, I'll bring up at the end where you can find help, but it's important to remember that help tab. The contact tab is a way of you getting in touch with us if you have questions. And most importantly for the moment is this applications tab, as that's where you can start new applications. So we're first going to cover List A matters. So imagine that we've clicked on the applications tab and this is an image of what it brings up. As I mentioned earlier, in April of 2020, some new rules were brought into force regarding List A and List B matters. So some List B matters were actually moved to the List A list. Some had new specified conditions added, and these are built into the system. So the most up-to-date rules are within the system itself. So when you log on, you can click the Start a New Application button circled in red. If you log on and you don't see that button, it means there's not a church linked to your account. And if that's the case, just email us and we can add one on for you. So imagining we've clicked that button, you'll then be taken through to this page here. So here is the initial summary page. So you have to select which church you're applying on behalf of, and then provide a summary of the proposed works. This needs to be really short, no more than 10 words or so, something like roof repair or new boiler, whatever the case may be. Then add a contact number and then hit finish, circled in red here. You'll then be taken through to this page. So as you can see, once you've completed a section, the system moves you on to the next one. So it's designed to be as intuitive and easy to follow as possible. You'll be taken through to this page, and here all you have to do is select whether the area affected by the proposed works is church building or churchyard. Once you've selected the relevant button, just hit the next button circled in red. Then you'll be taken through to a complete list of all of the List A matters, and it also provides any specified conditions. So you can scroll through that list until you find the relevant one and just hit the little button beside it to mark that that's the one you wish to do, and then click finish at the bottom of the page. You'll then go through to a confirmatory page just to say that you have completed the process, and then you can hit finish. And an email goes out to the DAC Secretary and the Archdeacon for information. That's all it is. It's not sort of any process where we have to confirm that you can go ahead with it. It's just an information thing. And you've got to this point, everything's ticked off, you've submitted it. So that means you can go ahead with the List A matter. Some people record List A matters in their church logbook. If you want to continue doing that, that's up to you in your parish to make that decision. You don't have to start recording List A's on the online faculty system. The benefit of doing it through the online faculty system is that you can see there's a histories tab and a messages tab. So if a new church warden were to come into post, for example, they can actually look back through previous applications and they can easily see what List A's have been submitted, what List B's have been submitted. So it's essentially an online version of the logbook. And the List A has been added to it because it it seemed daft to leave list day off and leave that in a physical logbook, but have everything else on this system. So it's just another example of it bringing it all together into one place. But as I say, it's up to you whether you start to use this system for list day or whether you continue with your logbook. And that's kind of personal preference within your parish. And that's it for list days. So as you can see, it may only take you about 5 minutes to do that process if you know exactly what you want to do, and you can find it quickly within that list. So we're now going to look at the list B matters. So it's the same initial steps, going to that applications homepage and clicking start a new application. You'll then be taken through to the same first 2 pages, which is why I've put the 2 screenshots on the same slide here. So there's the same initial summary page where you confirm which church you're applying for on behalf of. You add the summary, the short summary, and a contact number and hit finish. And then you just have to confirm the area affected by the proposed works and hit next. You'll then be taken through to the list A matters again. With the new rules in April 2020, as I mentioned, some stuff moved from list B onto list A. So this just gives you the chance to kind of almost have a fail-safe built into the system where you can scroll through that list and double check it's not there. So again, scroll through as you did for the list A matters, double check it's not there. If it's definitely not there, you hit the none of the above button, which has got the little red arrow by it, and then you hit next. You'll then be taken through to the page of list B matters. This has all the matters listed, all the specified conditions. You just have to scroll down until you find the relevant one, and then you can hit finish. You'll then go to this kind of application summary overview page. You'll see several tabs here that I'm just going to highlight. And these tabs are important. So history and messages means you can look back over the application, any emails to do with it. Supporting documents and images, I'll come to in a moment. That's regarding plans and photos and so on. And then this details tab kind of gives you an overview of the different stages of the application and where they've progressed to. So you can see a number of symbols. So a green tick means that section is done. The viewfinder symbol just allows you to view what information has been provided there. And then the edit symbol circled in red gives you the opportunity to hit that button and to provide additional information. So here, imagine we've hit that edit button circled in red, and you'll be taken through to the applications detail page. So here you can add further information, so maybe a schedule of works, for example. You can type that out, add as much detail as you want, and then click finish, and that will take you back to that application overview page. From there, you can click through to the supporting documents and images. So this is the spot where you can add plans, architect drawings, photographs, PCC minutes, which are particularly important for faculty applications. So this is where you add all those files. So there's just the add a file option, and you can search through your computer, find the relevant file. You can provide descriptions, and you can add as many files as are relevant to your application. So that might be one for some people. It might be a series of 25 photographs for others. There is a size limit for each individual file. It needs to be less than 10 megabytes in size. And that's for the individual file rather than the total of all the files. So that's 10 megabytes per file. And that limit is there just due to the cost of storing files on an online cloud system. But if you have a file that's bigger than that, you just need to get in touch with myself or Rosaleen, and we can work around that limit for you and add it individually. But preferably you can upload everything yourself below that file size limit. So once you've added any files you want that are relevant to your application, and completed all the sections, you'll see they've all got green ticks now. This means that the system thinks you're ready to progress to the next stage. However, you can actually see that by a couple of the sections, there's still the edit button. So it may be you started adding application details, but want to come back and add more. But because you've added something in that box, you've got a green tick. So to avoid applications being submitted before they're actually ready, once you've got green ticks, the system won't automatically submit an application. You have to manually hit that submit button circled in red. Speaking to colleagues in other dioceses who already use this system, it sounds as if this is actually missed more times than you might think. So we're not here trying to patronise you by reminding you to hit that. It's just from experience of colleagues, it's worth the reminder. So once you're happy with everything, just hit that submit button, and then an email will go to the DAC Secretary for information, and then to the Archdeacon as well for them to make their decision. The screenshot you can see in the middle of the slide here is the Archdeacon's response form. You won't ever see that in reality as an applicant, but we're showing you for information. So they get this form, they can confirm it's a list B and it can go ahead without a faculty. They can provide conditions or comments, or they can say, actually, this does need a faculty, and explain why. If they decide something does need to be a faculty, the system will automatically convert it to one. If you start a faculty application and then actually it's decided it could be a list B, the system can revert it. So there's lots of these loops built into the system. But once they've made their decision, they hit finish, and then an email goes out to the DAC Secretary and Registrar for information, and then you'll also receive an email in the parish as an applicant notifying you that a decision has been made, although the email won't say what that decision is. So then you need to log back onto the system, and using the view icon circled in red here, you can then look at what the Archdeacon has decided, and whether you can go ahead as a list B or whether it needs converting to a faculty. And that's it for list B matters. So as you can see, hopefully it's intuitive and easy to follow, and the system takes you through each stage of the application as you've completed the previous one. So it's not asking you for tons of information right at the start and then half of it becomes irrelevant. So I'm now going to hand over to Rosaleen for temporary minor reorderings.
Thank you very much, Anna. If I can introduce myself to those of you who don't know me, I'm Rosaleen Lane and I'm the DAC Secretary. And I'm going to talk to you today about the temporary minor reordering and also how we make full faculty applications. What you'll find is much of the initial screens that you come across will be similar to what you've already seen for list A and list B. And if we move on, we'll see how it is for temporary minor reordering. So when you actually start a new faculty application, you will hit the button that's marked Start a New Application, which you can see on the top left-hand side of the screen. But for a temporary minor reordering application, there's a separate button which is circled in red, and you need to click on that one. Can I just say that this is just a screenshot, and it happens to have been done with the Active Cases tab open. So there's a list of all different aspects of applications. When you start a new temporary minor reordering application, you won't necessarily see all these proposals. So don't be overwhelmed by what you see on the screen. Now, whilst we've been doing these training sessions, I have been asked, what's a temporary minor reordering? So for those of you who don't know, in very basic terms, it means refiguring the interior of the church, which usually means removal of certain pews that are in the church, and sometimes other aspects of fixtures and fittings. So there are two steps for the temporary minor reordering. This is the first step, which you will probably be familiar with by now, and you enter the name of the church, a summary of the proposed works in the box underneath that, and then a contact number. Then you hit the button next at the bottom, and it will take you to the second stage, which we can see here. Now, this is the only part of the faculty system where we ask for the name of the minister in the church. Now, where there are vacancies, then please contact your rural dean or archdeacon and see if they will have their name put in there. In the box underneath that, you will put in the details of the temporary minor reordering. There will always be an opportunity to upload any documents and photographs that you might have, and you might want to do that as well. So when you've finished, you click on the button Finish Form, and that's it in terms of the parish's submission for temporary minor reordering. Now, what we can see on this screen is what the Archdeacon fills in, and we're showing it to you for completion, really, so that you know what goes on behind the scenes. So the Archdeacon will have had an email, and he will have been able to have logged in to have a look at the minor reordering application. On the left-hand side is a screenshot where the Archdeacon makes the determination to either approve or reject. There is also a box underneath that where the Archdeacon can put their comments. When that's done, an email will be sent to the applicants to advise them that something has happened with your application, and you can go into the online faculty system and have a look at what the decision was. The right-hand side of the screen is a screenshot of an overview of the temporary minor reordering. So you can see that there's a green tick next to where Anna's helpfully highlighted in yellow beside the Archdeacon's processing form, which means that the Archdeacon has actually completed this stage. And if you click on the view icon, which is highlighted in yellow, you will be able to see the Archdeacon's decision. So when, as you can see on this, there are the tabs which you'll see on all of the List A, List B, faculty applications, details, supporting documents and images, history and messages. Supporting documents and images is where I said you'd be able to upload any photos or any other documents to support your application for the temporary minor reordering. Now, usually the licence, if the Archdeacon has agreed to the temporary minor reordering, will last approximately 18 months. Now, 6 months before the end of the licensing period, you will get monthly emails to remind you of that fact. And that means the parish can get together and decide if the temporary minor reordering has worked, or if you want to revert back to normal. Now, if the parish decide that yes, we want to go ahead with this temporary minor reordering, it's good for the church and it's good for mission, there's something called a Form 9 will be issued, and you'll be able to view that on the online faculty system. However, if the parish decides that it hasn't worked and they want to revert back, then they can do so, and it will be recorded here. But if you do decide, as I've said, to carry on with the temporary minor reordering, the application will automatically be converted to the start of a faculty application, because a faculty will still be needed for the temporary minor reordering to become a permanent fixture. So that's it really for temporary minor reordering. I'm hoping that you'll find it straightforward. It's not something that you will come across all the time, because it only happens every now and then when a church does a reordering. But now we'll have a look at applying for a full faculty application. For the full faculty application, again, you'll see the initial screen where you put in the name of the church. In the box underneath, you'll put in a summary of the proposed works, which, as Anna has already said, we'd like no more than 10 words, and underneath that, a contact number. Then you click Finish, which you can see on the screenshot in the top left-hand side of your screen, which is now highlighted in yellow. You'll then actually be taken to a whole list of the List A matters. And the reason for this is it's not a mistake. It's to make sure that all or part of your faculty application cannot actually be done with a List A. We occasionally get faculty applications that have a mixture of proposals that can be done by List A or List B, and also some of the proposals do need a full faculty application. So it gives you a chance to decide, oh yes, we can do a List A for that part of the proposals. If it's not the case, you will click None of the Above on your List A screen. You'll click Next, which will be on the bottom button, and then you'll be taken through to a whole list of List B matters. And again, it's the same process. You just check that none of the proposals on your faculty application form can be done by List B. And if they can, then you'll be able to put it through that way, because it is a lot quicker process. However, if none of the List Bs are applicable, then you click None of the Above, then you click Finish Form, which is circled in red, and it will take you through to the next stage of the faculty application process. This is the Form 1A, or the Standard Information Form, which accompanies all faculty applications. In the past, these used to be kept on the website, and you could print them off and submit it as a document with your faculty application. This won't be the case going forward, and we now have it online here on the online faculty system. You'll see a button on the bottom left-hand side, which will be highlighted in yellow, called Reload from Church Heritage Record. When you go into this page, if you click on that button, then the information from the Church Heritage Record, which Anna has talked about earlier in this presentation, all the information should pre-fill all of the boxes on the Form 1A. There might be some parts of the Form 1A that are still not filled in, and you are able to complete those boxes. If you do that, then can you also let us know here at the DAC, so that we can update the central Church Heritage Record with the correct information. You'll notice another button here, which is the Save and Come Back Later button, which is a good facility. And for those of us who fill in our tax forms every year, it's the same sort of functionality, whereby you don't have to feel that you've got to complete the faculty application form all in one go, or else you're going to miss some of the information. You can actually click that button and it will save all the information that you've entered into the system so far, and you can come back to it at a later date. It might be that somebody else will come back and complete their bits. So it's quite a useful functionality. There are 4 stages to this part of the process. You'll see 4 tabs there, 1, 2, 3, 4, which I have entered in yellow. At the bottom of each of the tabs will be the button Next. You just click on that and it will take you through to the next stage. So we'll assume that you've filled in the 4 stages for the Form 1A, where you've probably reloaded from the Church Heritage Record as well. And then you'll come to this page, which is an overview of how the faculty application is doing. So there are green ticks against the first 2 items, summary description of proposed works, the standard information pages. That means they've been done, and it's now come for an initial DAC review. So there's an egg timer there, so you'll be waiting for somebody from the DAC and the DAC Secretary to review the information so far, and we'll go on to the next page. When it comes to the DAC for initial review, the DAC Secretary will have a look and see if your application will need a statement of significance and a statement of need. Generally, unlisted churches do not need those, but if it helps your application, then please do feel free to submit these documents. That's absolutely fine. But for churches that are listed, whether it's grade 1, 2, 2-star, then you will need to provide these forms and they will be ticked. In the box underneath will be an outline of supporting documentation that you need to provide. This generally includes things like photographs, PCC resolution, because the application cannot gain a full faculty without that. Although if you don't have it straight away, that's fine, but before a faculty is granted, it will need to be provided. But it also might include things like technical specs, it might include things like plans, drawings, and it may be that this will be added to by DAC members from time to time if it's decided that other documentation is also needed. So when that's completed, the button Finish form will be pressed and all the forms will be selected. You'll get an email to say what you need to do next in terms of all the information that you need to provide, and you can go back into the online faculty system and start something that's called a Form 3A, which you can see here on the 2 screenshots, which are sitting side by side. Now, this is generally a replication of the usual faculty application form that we are all used to. On the left-hand side, we put in contact details, and we can have up to 3 applicants here. But in order for them, all the applicants, to be able to add to the faculty application, they will all need to be registered with that church. So just bear that in mind. And the beauty of having more than one person attending to a faculty application, especially if it's a complicated and very long matter, is it spreads the load of the work, because we appreciate that this is quite a lot of work for parishes to do, but it is a legal requirement that we do it. We've got exemption from the secular planning system to do our own ecclesiastical planning, and we can't get away from that, but we do appreciate the amount of work involved. On the right hand side, you can see it's already onto the 2nd tab, And here we can outline the proposals. And it's best to do it as an itemised list, please, rather than an essay or lots of paragraphs of what you want to do. It's much easier to do it as a list. At the end of each section on Form 3A, you'll see the button Next, which you click and it will take you through to the next one. There are 5 stages to this Form 3A, which have been highlighted. You go through each stage. Again, you can always save and come back later if something happens and you can't complete it all in one go. And when you've got to the 5th tab, it will be for completion of that stage. Now, as I've said, that there will be many churches who will need to provide a statement of significance and a statement of needs form. I think approximately 2/3 of our churches in Carlisle Diocese are listed in some way, and so that will affect quite a number of you. If you have a statement of significance already pre-prepared, such as by an architect or surveyor, or maybe you've got one already, then you don't have to go through the online faculty system filling in each box for this stage. You can upload it as a file instead, and you just click, you just tick on the box next to that line, I have uploaded it as a file, and then it can be uploaded. But for those of us who don't have that pre-prepared statement, then you will need to go through the stages, and there are 7 stages for the statement of significance, which we can see here, with lots of different sections in them. Now, it might be that you're just doing the interior of the church, and so you may find that some of the sections within the statement of significance are not required. And if you see that on 1.2, the living churchyard, you don't need to put anything in there. However, if you wanted to, that's absolutely fine, and the more information that we have is usually very helpful. There's lots of information that you'll find within the online faculty system that will help you complete these forms, as I realise it can be a bit overwhelming. On this particular page, you'll see it's a very small little purple dot. It's got a question mark in it, which Anna's highlighted for us now. If you hover over that, it will give you some hints and tips. But throughout the faculty system, there will be links to places such as the Church Care website or Historic England, which will give you advice what you should be putting within each of these boxes within your statement of significance and your statement of need. So as I've said, there are 7 tabs for the statement of significance. You go through each of these in turn. You might not have the information for one of the tabs, and you might want to just leave that, go to the next one, and then later on there's always that button Previous, which you can see at the bottom right hand side of our screen, which is now highlighted in yellow, and you can just go back a couple of steps and fill in the bits that haven't been completed and that you want to put forward as part of your application. So once we've completed the statement of significance, you will go on to complete the statement of needs. Now, as I've said, these 2 forms will only come up for you if it has been decided that you do need to fill in these forms. So if you've got an unlisted church, and especially if you're doing something that's fairly straightforward, then you won't need to go through these. The statement of needs form can be uploaded, just like the statement of significance, but if not, then the online faculty system provides all the different stages for you here. Within each box, there are a summary of what is required in there. But this particular screenshot is useful because, as I've said before, throughout the online faculty system, there are helpful links that will hopefully help you fill in the parts of the application form. And here there's a link to the Church Care website, which will provide the information that you need to complete the form. There are just 5 tabs for the Statement of Needs, and every time you click Next at the bottom of each page, you'll get taken through to the next tab. You can always save and come back later, and then when you've finished, you'll see that an overview of the faculty application is now a bit fuller. In addition to the top 2 items, the summary and standard information, there are 3 items which are arrowed in red, which are the petition details of the Form 3A and statements of significance and needs. So the system knows that you have completed them, and that's why you see a green tick. But if they're not completed, you would see an egg timer. However, it does allow you to still edit it, because you might have finished it, but you might think, well, I need to just check on something, and you can actually still go back in and edit it. When you're really happy that, yes, this is fine, you click the Submit button, which is circled in red. So although we see all the green ticks, it doesn't mean it's actually submitted. You do have to click on that Submit button in order to go to the next stage. Now, the next stage is that the DAC Secretary gets an email to advise them that you're waiting for a decision to be made on the next stage. The legislation at the moment is that the parishes are responsible for inviting formal consultation with Historic England and the amenity bodies. And if we can see circled in red there, there's a list of the amenity bodies that can be consulted. In this diocese, we've consulted all of them at different stages with different applications, although we've never actually consulted with the Gardens Trust. In some dioceses, this is quite an important amenity body, but don't worry, don't feel that you need to tick that. Now, if the Chancellor decides that the DAC Secretary can help to help the parishes decide which consultees to invite, the DAC Secretary can also do this for you. So if the Victorian Society was ticked with the Georgian group, then the Victorian Society and the Georgian group will automatically get an email to say that a consultation is awaited for your faculty application. Now, they have 42 days in order to make a response. If they don't respond within the 42 days, we don't have to give them any longer. We can just go ahead and have it considered by the DAC members at one of the committee meetings. However, sometimes they might contact us to say, can you give us a few more days grace? And I would suggest that we do that, because it might be when it gets to the Chancellor, he might decide, well, I really do need to hear from the Council for British Archaeology, and he will contact them again, and another 42 days will be added. So that would make over 80 days waiting around for consultations, which isn't very clever. You'll see underneath the formal amenity bodies, there are lists of other consultees that might be asked to consult on your application. So this might include people like the Bells Advisor, or the advisor on our organs, or it could indeed be one of the DAC members themselves who might have a particular specialism in a certain part of the archaeology of the church, and they will be asked to consult as well. Now, these consultees that are not amenity bodies rarely take 42 days, and we would hope that they would be a lot quicker than that. However, if they do have to go out and do a site visit to the church, you can see that it might take a few weeks, because they then have to write a report as well. So if we then move on, we can see an overview of the faculty application so far. And we now have down at the bottom, you can see that the review and the consultation has got a green tick against it, so that it has been done. And we are now waiting for the formal consultation responses. So there's an egg timer there. And as I've said, the formal consultation responses are allowed 42 days. So if we have a look at the formal consultations, we can view the responses in the view icons, which are underneath the column headed View Response Details. It might be that we're waiting for a few of the consultees to get back to us, in which case we can still have a look at what the first few consultees have said, but we still have to wait for the final one to come through. At the bottom, you can see how many days are remaining for the consultees. So it says 42 days, and so this is at the very beginning of that particular faculty application. So we are at the DAC review stage, because we've now got all our formal consultations in, and this is an overview of the application so far. The view icon next to the green tick is where you can still view the individual consultation responses. The DAC now decides to have a look at these consultation responses as well. And it might be that in the light of some of the information coming through from one of the amenity bodies, the faculty application might be returned to the parish in light of those comments, as the parish may want to review them. Indeed, the parish may decide to review them without the DAC asking them to, and they might want to amend some of the proposals in line with the responses. So we've jumped now through to the Form 2 notification of advice, and before this actual form is completed, the DAC, the committee for the Diocesan Advisory Committee will meet, and they will consider the proposals and all the accompanying documentation and any formal consultations, any internal consultations will be considered as well. They might decide that they're going to recommend the proposals, and the box at the top there, the committee recommends the works or proposals for approval by the court, will be ticked. Now, this doesn't mean that the faculty application, that's the end of it. What it means is the committee is recommending to the Chancellor that the faculty should be approved. It is the Chancellor that actually gives the faculty. It isn't the DAC. They just make recommendations. Now, if they decide not to recommend the works or proposals, as can be seen underneath this particular box, then the provisos and the reasons will be given in the box underneath. You can come back to us, and if it's asking for more information or a change of the proposals, then it doesn't mean the end of the faculty application. You can come back with the revised amendments, and it can be considered at another committee meeting. So if it goes through to the committee, and the committee decided yes, this is approved, a Form 2 will be issued, which is sent to both the parish and to the registrar. And the registrar will prepare a public notice, and you'll be able to access this on the online faculty system. But I would make the point that the public notice still has to be physically displayed inside, outside the church building, such as on a notice board or in another prominent position, so it can be read by the public. So you will need to still print out your public notice form, and there is a facility within the system where you can click print, and you can then print it out. But it will mean that somebody in the parish will need access to a printer. If there's a problem with this, then please just come back to us. The public notice will still be able to be seen by the public on the electronically on the online faculty system, as well as on a physical piece of paper which has been put outside the church. This is an overview of the what's actually happened to our faculty application from the very beginning, when we put in the summary description of the proposed work. So there's quite a few bits of the process here, and you can see it is quite lengthy. If we look about 2/3 of the way down, you'll see public notice has been completed. And then a public notice certificate will be issued once that public notice has been displayed for the specified length of time. Until that time, you'll see a next timer like Anna has highlighted for us. Underneath this are two other parts of the overview, which you can see there: Registrar's remarks to the Chancellor and the Chancellor's determination and judgment. Now, these are private, and the only people that can access this part of the system are the Registrar and Chancellor. But once the Chancellor has made their determination and issued the faculty, then you will be able to see that through the view icon. You will get an email every time something happens with your faculty application, and that will be a reminder to you, oh, the faculty has been issued, and you can go and have a look at it. You could print it out if you wish for your own paper records, if that's how you prefer to do things. At the bottom of this overview of our faculty application, you can see practical completion. Now, this is a stage that was previously overlooked, really, and only occasionally did we know whether the proposals that were granted on faculty actually took place. So there is an egg timer by this one, because the completion of the proposals hasn't been finished. But once your proposals have been finished, we'll say it's amending a new roof, or putting in new mortar into the joints, you'll be able to complete this practical completion form, which is important certainly for future church wardens, and they can see at a glance that although faculty was granted, they can see when it was completed, and this is often quite important. So the first part of this faculty application form is in tab 1, and it asks for the name of the contractor within this first tab, and you can see here that the name is put in there, and if you click on the button next, you'll be taken to the next tab, which will be the name of the architect or surveyor that you used, if you used one. Not all proposals require the skills of an architect or surveyor, so if one hasn't been used, then you don't need to fill in that tab. The third part of the tab is where you will put in which parts of the proposals were finished and the date that they were finished. It might be that all of the proposals were completed. It might be that it was only partially completed and you were able to put in the information there. And it might be that the parish has decided not to go ahead with the faculty after all, and you can put in there that it hasn't been completed. And sometimes this happens if grants that were expected don't come through. Thank you, Anna.
So I'm just going to quickly mention where you can find help. We're aware for some people, if they're maybe new to a church warden role, the whole faculty process is completely new to them. It's not just a new system to use. So we just wanted to highlight these key places. Some of them have already been mentioned. So, for example, the help text banners, which is circled in the large red circle here. So these sit at the top of nearly all of the forms that you complete as part of an application. And that explains what the purpose of that form is, what information is needed. It may provide links, so for example to the church care website, as we've previously mentioned. So all that information's there, and that guides you through each form in turn. We've also mentioned the little pop-ups. So there's the small purple question mark circled in the small red circle. These are screenshots. In reality, they're much bigger and much easier to see, and therefore much easier to hover over. And when you hover over them, it'll provide specific guidance for that question. So for whatever that may be. So here it's the public notice end date, and it can provide specific information for that. There are also user manuals. So you remember right back kind of partway through this presentation, I mentioned there was a help tab when you initially log into the online faculty system, and on there you can find these user manuals, and they talk you through much of what we've discussed in this recording, but in a lot more detail. And there you can also find the frequently asked questions. There are some dioceses that have been using this system since 2015, so the chances are that if you're stuck at some point for whatever reason, someone else has already hit that error or confusion, whatever it may be. So it's worth looking at those frequently asked questions, and you'll find information there to help you. Finally, if you look through all these places and you can't find the help you need, just get in touch with us. If we can't help you, we will know someone that can. So we're kind of there to support you. We are learning the system as well as you. So we're not expecting you to start using this with no input and support from us by any stretch of the imagination. There is a contact system within the online faculty system for you to reach us if you don't already have our email addresses. But it's also worth mentioning that actually you can help one another. I forgot to mention this earlier, but if you have 3 church wardens and a member of the clergy and an architect who have all registered for the accounts with an online faculty system, and they have all linked their accounts to a church. So for me, my nearest church to my house is Dalston. So say you've got 5 people registered for accounts linked to Dalston, they can all support, put input into any applications. So an architect might upload all the plans whilst the church warden fills in the standard information form, so they can all work on an application at the same time. So it eases the burden off at one person being responsible, and you can share that load between each other. So that is everything for this presentation. Thank you very much for taking the time to listen to us. We hope you found it useful and beneficial. As I've said, there's plenty of ways you can get in touch with us. So please just feel free to email us, get in touch with us via the online faculty system itself if you have any questions look at the user manuals, and hopefully we can all start using the system and learning it together, and it is effective in making the faculty process simpler for everyone involved. Thank you.
Thank you and good luck.